Hi, welcome to anglos.co.il. I'm Warren Lewis, and today we're going to be talking about car insurance in Israel. Our guest today is Danny Newman from Goldfus Insurance. Danny, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
A short background and your experience in the insurance industry here in Israel.
Okay, so originally from the UK, London, made Aliyah in 1999. Used to work back in the old country for Sun Life of Canada. And since 2006, I've been working for Goldfus Insurance. Set up the Modi'in office in 2006, and in 2012, I opened up the Bet Shemesh office. Okay, great. So you got a lot of experience. Hopefully you can help us out with the nuts and bolts of car insurance. Just to start off with, I know there's different kinds of insurance. When I do my car insurance, there's like multiple documents I have to fill in. So can you just explain to us what is the difference between your Bituach Chova, Bituach Makif, and your Bituach Tzad Gimel? Yeah. So what I do, I bought some. I often say that the easiest way is to actually highlight what covers what. So let's say I'm driving along in my my Mini and I crash into the yellow Volkswagen Beetle. There's damage to my car, damage to the Volkswagen, and for good measure, I've also, in the accident, knocked over a pedestrian as well. Oh my goodness. So we'll cover everything. You're really going to want to get into the car with me after this. But no, it's this will help understand what's covered what, because a lot of people have a misconception as to what is covered by which aspect of the insurance, especially as this is one of the insurances that is actually different to how car insurance is built in other countries, and what's the legal minimum. First and foremost, what is the legal requirement? There is no legal requirement whatsoever for me to have coverage to cover the damage to my car or to the other person's car. Okay. The only legal minimum requirement, called Bituach Chova, from the word liot chayav, is have to have an obligation, hence compulsory insurance. The obligatory insurance only covers bodily injury. So we're only looking at this individual who has been injured, whether he be a pedestrian, whether he or she be a passenger in that car or in my car. Yeah. First and foremost, it is a no-fault insurance. It makes no difference whatsoever that I was at fault. Any person who's in this car that I've hit will be covered by the Bituach Chova of this car. Yes. It is not an insurance that will cover, let's say I own 2, 3, 4 different cars. Each car will have its own individual Bituach Chova, compulsory insurance. So even though I'm at fault, my my compulsory insurance will only cover the injured people in my car and the pedestrian that I've hit. It will not cover the person here. Okay. So it is a no-fault insurance. It's all based on the 1975 Insurance Act called Chok HaPaltad, which covers people who are injured in traffic accidents. There are no sums insured listed in the policy whatsoever. Yes. There is no deductible, excess, hishtatfut atzmit, no copay. Yes. Whatever is decided either as an out-of-court settlement or if it goes to court, what is determined by the court, it needs to be paid out to the individuals who have been injured. Okay. That is what the insurance company pays out. So that's the first aspect. The other aspect to note is that the cost of the Bituach Chova is based on a number of factors, because we're dealing with bodily injury. So not only is it based on the type of car, the engine capacity, the more powerful cars may cost more, or the age of the driver or the claims experience. Yeah. It's also based on the safety measures in the car as well. Okay. So an older car that doesn't necessarily have airbags or lane deviation systems may be more to insure than a newer car that has all these safety features as well, because it is in essence covering personal injury. Okay. The older the driver, usually, the cheaper it is as well. Yeah. And it goes by the age of the youngest driver. Okay. That's Bituach Chova, so we've dealt with the passenger. So by definition, as you say, Bituach Chova is the only one that you have to take out. When I buy a car and I drive out of the car sales place,
that's the only one that I have to have, essentially.
Correct. I would strongly advise not just having that.
Absolutely, but according to legally, that's the one.
And it has to be paid up in advance. And this is a lot of people get confused. If one looks at the certificate, it will say Shulam paid on it if it's goes through the computerized systems, and it has the date and the time. Correct. There is no such thing as being able to backdate this insurance.
Right.
So, for example, if let's say you were the agent and I was going to, you would put on your system and it's gone through, and you take the payment details. It goes through there and then, and the certificate is dated and timed. So you can't be, you've taken the car and say, I'll deal with it when I get home. And if something's happened, on that journey, you're in essence driving uninsured and also.
So would a dealership let you drive out without the bitur?
They shouldn't.
Right. So,
they shouldn't. I haven't come across a dealership who's allowed that to happen.
Right.
They usually will only release the car, once shows that they have a valid paid up certificate. But it may be a second-hand purchase. Right. So if you're buying from a private dealer, private individuals may not ask for that.
Or if you die, people are selling between themselves. It's not through a dealership.
So if I bought a car from you,
need to make sure that you've got that bitur chovah in place before you drive away with that vehicle.
Correct. And quite often, if people are buying a car, late at night, the insurance companies may be shut, so you might be able to do some online or through direct line insurers. But are you shopping around and are you getting, the best package, so to speak? So I would always advise in advance, if someone is, let's say, buying one car and buying a new car, so you might want to upgrade it or transfer the policy from one to the other at the time of doing it. So you make sure you're doing it at a time, or have it done it in advance of the purchase, so that you don't get to the place and you're stuck, and then you don't have the insurance that gets out of office hours. So you aren't able to purchase it. Okay. But ultimately, that's the only legal requirement. It's paid in advance. Often people will see on their credit card statements, because a lot of companies will allow you to pay it in installments, in tashlumim.
Okay.
In Hebrew, it's known as an iskas skura. It is a closed transaction because it has to be paid in advance. So if let's say you are purchasing the chovah and you've got an Israeli Visa card, let's say, the insurance company is receiving from your Visa company the full amount. Right. So you'll see in your statement, if you've split it into, let's say, 10 payments, if let's say it cost 1,000 shekel, so each month you're paying 100 shekel, the insurance company's already received the full 1,000 shekel to cover the bitur chovah.
Because it has to be paid up front.
Correct. So it has to be paid in advance. Right. So you will see on your credit card statement, payment 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, because it's included. So we'll actually, if you've got a limit on your credit card for, let's say, 10,000 shekel, initially 1,000 shekels been eaten up. The following month, 900 and 800. So it is eating into your ashray, into your credit card, into your credit on the credit card. So that is just one thing. But that's the bitur chovah. Okay. You then have bitur makif, which is comprehensive, fully comprehensive coverage. And then you've got bitur tzad gimel. Okay. Within makif, tzad gimel, third-party liability is covered. Within third-party liability, it's not comprehensive. What's the difference? So let's go back to the accident. We've taken the injured people out of the equation. We're looking at the damage to my car and the damage I've caused to the other car. So if I have fully comprehensive coverage, if I've got bitur makif, the damage to my car and the damage I caused to the yellow beetle will be covered by my insurance.
That's makif?
Makif.
Okay.
The other person will be claiming off my insurance.
So his insurance company will come to your insurance company?
Or they'll come directly to me, but some kind of documentation. But ultimately, the payment will come from my makif, my comprehensive policy.
Got you.
So it's covering, what is third party? This person is a third party to me. It's not me. Yeah. So my insurance is coming. It doesn't have to be a car. It could be if I've crashed into someone's fence or someone's house and caused structural damage there as well. That would be covered within the third party, up to the limits within the policy, and different policies have different limits. If I only have third party liability, so my car won't be covered. This car will be covered. Right. So if a lot of people think, I've got bitur chovah, I've got coverage, it's an old car. I bought a 20-year-old car, it's only worth about 6,000 or 7,000 shekel. I don't need to pay a couple of thousand shekel to insure.
Because I'm not worried about damaging it. Correct. But you've got to worry about the other car or the other home.
Exactly. A lot of people don't miss. I remember there was a claim from many years ago now where a very old Subaru hit the back of our client's car.
Yes.
2,000 shekel worth of damage to the old Subaru.
Yes.
However, they had crashed into our client's new Mercedes and caused 127,000 shekel worth of damage.
Okay.
So you want to make sure in those situations that you've got at least Tzad Gimel.
Yes.
So third party only covers the other car.
Yes.
Makif, fully comprehensive, will cover damage to my car and to the other car that I've hit. The question always comes up, when do I downgrade from fully comprehensive to just having third party?
That's what I was going to ask you. So Makif and Tzad Gimel is one and the same thing?
Makif includes Tzad Gimel.
Got you. Okay,
when you downgrade to Tzad Gimel, it's only covering this other car I've hit. I have Makif, I don't need to have another third party.
So for example, you don't have to cover yourself, but you always want to make sure that you have Tzad Gimel so that the other party is covered.
Exactly.
Got it.
So the question also being, as my car gets older and the value depreciates, decreases, when do I make that decision when to downgrade the insurance from fully comprehensive to third party?
Got you.
That is a personal conversation. That's a personal decision. For example, for some people, it might be 30,000 shekel. Someone who isn't concerned, they say, I'm not worried. I'm not going to pay another 1,000, 2,000 shekel. I'll just buy another car.
Is there a big difference in premiums if I downgrade? If I choose not to have Makif, if I just have the third party, is there a big difference in my monthly premium?
So that's a good question. It depends on a number of factors. It depends on the type of car.
Yes.
It depends on the claims record. It depends on the age of the driver, various other parameters as well. I always recommend to people, as they have an older car, the equation that I put to clients is as follows. How much does it cost to cover Makif, fully comprehensive?
Yes.
How much does it cover just to cover the Tzad Gimel third party? What's the differential? If the differential is, let's say, 1,300 shekel, is it worth paying the extra 1,300 shekel to cover my car against the value of the car? If the car's worth 8,000, 9,000 shekels, you may say, I'm not paying 1,300 shekel to cover a car that's worth 8,000.
Right.
I'll take the hit. Especially as you add on to that, there is a co-pay, deductible or excess to pay in.
So you're going to pay something anyway.
Yeah, usually it varies. On average, it's between 1,000 to 2,000 shekel, depending on the nature of the damage, or if you go to one of the insurance company garages to get it fixed. But ultimately, that's the equation to have. As the car gets older, when do I reduce it from fully comprehensive to third party? So just in a nutshell, what are the three insurances before we then maybe touch on within the policy what all of the difference is? So we said Bitur Chova covers the bodily injury, whether someone in my car or a pedestrian, it is a no-fault insurance. So even I've hit this car, the people in that car will be covered by this person's insurance policy. Right. Then you've got the physical damage. Makif, fully comprehensive, will cover the damage to my own car and damage I've caused to the third party as well. So third party is built into that. If I've only got third party, it will only cover damage I've caused to this car, not to my own car.
Gotcha.
So that sums up, I guess, the names.
Great. That explains. It's very important to understand that, I think. Are there things that will affect your premiums? So for example, I want a bigger, less or more deductible, my previous history. Would I need to bring a history from when I come as an Olim? Would I need to bring a history of my previous insurance claims and record from overseas?
So very, very good points. There are a number of factors that impact the cost of the insurance, other than the actual car itself. For example, a Porsche is clearly going to be more expensive than a 20-year-old Subaru to insure. You've got the age of the driver.
Yes.
So someone who is a new driver, there are different age brackets. So a 17-year-old is going to pay more than, let's say, a 19-year-old, 21-year-old, 24, 30, 35, 40. There are different age brackets.
Gotcha.
That as someone gets into an older bracket, they should be paying less for insurance. Okay. So that's one aspect, is the physical age of the youngest driver.
Okay.
Another factor is insurance record. So let's say the two of us are looking to buy a car, and let's say you have had no claims in the last 20 years, and I have had a claim like clockwork every 6 months.
Yes.
Every January the 1st and every June the 1st, I happen to have a car accident. You have one accident, put it down to bad luck. But if I'm having, I'm a serial, crasher.
Yeah.
So the insurance company will likely say, Danny, you are not quite as good a driver as Warren is.
So they're going to penalise you.
So yeah, I pose a greater risk to the insurance company. That's part of the underwriting process. And they will say, either they will choose not to insure me at all because I'm just a crazy driver and they don't want to take that risk, don't want to even be there.
Right.
Or I'm likely to pay a lot more in insurance for the same car than you will pay.
Right.
Or I may have a higher deductible, copay or excess to pay than you, because the insurance company say, well, we're prepared to insure you, but we're seeing that you're having such a high number of claims, we want to minimize what we as the insurance company have to pay out, so we will charge you a higher copay, right, than we're going to charge Warren. So that is another aspect. So the claims history. So on the claims history, for someone who's an Oleh Chadash, if they've come to Israel, so let's say you made Aliyah last week,
right,
and you've called me up and say, Danny, I'd like to quote for car insurance. So the insurance company going to say, well, what's your claims record? And you say, well, I haven't got insurance.
Because I haven't lived in Israel.
I haven't lived it.
Right.
So a number of companies will charge the Oleh a much higher rate because they have no insurance history.
Okay.
The advice that we always give to Olim, and we're not alone here, there are other quality agents out there as well who are familiar with working with Olim, is to get a claims letter from your country of origin.
Okay.
At least 3-4 years. A claim stays on your record here for 3 years.
So how far back do you need to go to satisfy the insurance company at 3-4 years?
A lot of people say 3. We would say 4 years.
Okay.
Why say 4? Because there's one company which, if someone's only got one claim in 4 years, they will still give the full no claims discount.
Okay.
So in case that insurance company happens to be the cheapest with the no claims, so whilst a lot of people throw out the 3 years because that's how long a claim stays in your record, because there is a company out there who, if there's one claim in 4 years, will still give the full no claims bonus, we recommend getting a letter of showing that there are 4 years of claims-free driving. That way we can transpose that and give you the full claims discount based on the overseas record as well. So that is something which can impact, especially the Oleh who comes here, who to avoid them needlessly paying a higher premium as far as that's concerned. So we've spoken about the claims record.
So there's no, let's say I didn't think of that before. I've now arrived and Danny's now told me, he's given me the great advice, I should have got this from wherever I was and I didn't get it. Is there any way around it, or I'm going to pay the higher? Can I sign a waiver to say that I haven't had any claim, or is there no way around it and the insurance company is going to charge me the higher premium?
So it all depends. I guess there's no carte blanche. There's no answer that I can give that's going to cover everything. I guess it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. So it may be, and again, this is where a good broker will come in as well. If you're able to obtain the letter afterwards, so then to go back to the insurance company and then reduce the premiums accordingly.
Got you.
So that might be able to be done in many instances. In a lot of instances, we have the ability, if the person doesn't have that, and we always ask this before setting up the policy, sometimes a declaration, because of the size of our agency, with certain insurance companies, they allow us with a declaration signed by the new Oleh that they haven't had accidents in the last 3 years or 4 years. So sometimes that may be, I'm not saying always, that may be able to assist and lower as well. So so I wouldn't say there's always a way to circumvent it, but there often are ways to circumvent that issue. But that's one aspect.
Okay.
There's another aspect which also impacts it, and that's driving experience.
Okay.
So again, let's say we're both the same age. I passed my driving test when I was 17. You decided, at a later stage in life, last month to finally take your driving test and you passed.
Right.
So your driving experience is less than mine. So you're going to be in the category of new driver. You've got a young driver, which we spoke about when we spoke about the age. A young driver pays more, but also a nahag chadash.
Right.
A new driver initially will pay more than someone who is a driver with greater experience.
So even though we're both 35, if I've just been driving
plus that, and some.
If I've been driving, it doesn't matter, in terms of that age. It's not so much the age; it's how long have I been driving for. If I've been driving for a year and you've been driving for 15 years, that has an impact on my premium.
That can also have that will also have an impact on the premiums as well. So there are multi facets and things that impact the cost of the insurance. Now, what I would say, and this is another area that Olim often fall into, and I see this on various groups, it comes up another time on the Facebook group that I co-moderate called Living Financially Smarter in Israel, whereby people will ask the question, about the cost of it, and I seem to be paying a lot more for insurance.
Yes.
A few years ago, everything went automated. On maybe I'll take my driving license out to show, because this will be an important thing to note. On a bottom of a driving license, even though I've had this for well over 20 years now,
right.
On the bottom left-hand side of someone who converted their driving license, it says here, Hamara al pi rishon zar.
Okay.
So you can see it's on the bottom left. It says, it has been converted from a foreign license.
Okay, so the fact that somebody sees this and it was only issued, your license was only issued sort of in the last few years as an Ole, they know that I have previous driving experience from my...
So they won't automatically know. No.
Okay.
That's the problem. With it all being automated, if let's say I made Aliyah and last month I've just converted it and I've just got my new license, the computerized systems that the insurance companies plug into will show, my driving experience with an license is only from a month ago.
Got you.
So automatically the insurance companies will charge me the higher rate with lack of driving experience.
Because it's almost like I'm a Nahag Hadash, like I'm a new driver.
Exactly. Now, agents who are familiar with this issue, this is something which we are obviously being, a very large English-speaking agency, having worked for 50 years now with Olim, we are able to, by showing the wording on the bottom left-hand side, the bottom right-hand side, which says Hamara pi rishon zar, we are able to have the insurance companies manually overwrite the system, and then on the basis of the real driving experience, have the insurance companies update that. And obviously, someone who's got a longer driving experience will be able to pay a lower premium than someone who is, a new driver.
So would I then have to? I would have to bring to show that to you. Would I have to bring my license from my original?
Well, I'm assuming you have it in your wallet anyway.
Yeah, normally you would, but I'm saying that would be helpful. When I'm throwing out documents, well, I don't need this anymore. It would be helpful when I come to bring that document with me or that driver's license with me, so I can show you. And you can use it as proof to override the system.
That is something we would also save in the client's file as well, so that there is documentation that they are not a new driver.
Got it.
Ultimately, because the Israeli license does say Hamara pi rishon zar, that it's been converted, so we know that, especially nowadays with the change in regulations, that you have to be able to convert, you have to have had a license for at least 5 years now.
Right.
So they're going to know the person's got at least 5 years of experience.
Got it.
So in those situations, someone who has converted license, recommended speak to someone in the insurance industry who's familiar with this and has the ability to overwrite the systems, so that you can pay less and not be treated as a novice.
Got you. I've got a young driver in the family,
commiserations.
Who's hopefully going to be getting his license soon. Now, in terms of, for those of us who are not familiar with the system, in terms of how do I go about insuring him? Do I just add him to my regular insurance? I've heard of certain apps that you can get where you just sign up for a couple of hours while they're driving. What can you tell us about how do I go about insuring a child, a young driver, somebody's about to get their license here?
So, why did I say joke in my commiserations? Because that is a very expensive period of time for a parent, assuming the parent's going to be paying for the child to be insured. There are some children who, I say children, young adults, who will pay their own way as well. The cost of the chovah, when we spoke about the bodily injury, if I look back in time to back in the ancient past when I was a 17-year-old, I would guess wrongly take more risks then as I would now,
right?
And I would maybe not drive as carefully, as I would now. Fortunately, I've got away with it, not having any accidents then. But the risk for the insurance company is greater because they're aware that especially with young men driving, the number of claims tends to be proportionally higher than, let's say, people in our age bracket.
Got you.
So the chovah will be a lot more expensive to cover for a young driver. Anyway, no matter what the car is, it's going to cost usually another couple of thousand shekel for the year in the majority of cases. There are options around it. Now, if let's say your young daughter or young son is only going to be driving on an ad hoc basis here and there, let's say they're in the army, they're in yeshiva or university, and they don't drive that often at all. They're only going to be driving a few times in the year. So different insurance companies will have a different amount of times that the young driver can be added, maybe for a 4-day period, a 2-day period. There may be a maximum number of times, and it may cost a symbolic amount to add them for that short period. So in that situation, that may be the most cost efficient way. It's also worth noting that often for a young driver, the hishtatfut tatzmit, the deductible or the excess that they would have to pay if they're held accountable, is usually higher, often 50% higher than what you or I would have to pay.
Got it.
That's as far as the young driver from the chovah is concerned, and the hours. The other thing to note.
So chovah, he's got to have chovah in chovah, but chovah, there's different ways to do it. We can either you just add him to your chovah as is, or there are ways to, if he's only going to be driving periodically, there are ways to do it in a more cost-effective, periodical way.
Correct. So you can do that. If they're going to be driving for the entire year, so the most common way is to add them, and you need to update the chovah to cover because it goes by the age of the youngest driver. So that's going to be costing a good couple of thousand shekel for the entire year. Usually people who have a young driver are going to be our stage in life. It's very rare that you have a 28-year-old with a 17-year-old driver. So it's usually people who are used for a number of years paying a lower cost for their insurance.
So it comes as a surprise, you're suddenly paying a lot more.
It's a lot more. So if they're only driving on an ad hoc basis, depending on the frequency they're going to be driving, it may be worthwhile just paying for those 3-4 days at a time to do so. But if they're living
at home and they're going to drive it daily,
so then that's not the optimum solution. Then you need to either choose to add them the whole time, which is going to be more expensive, and it's also going to be more expensive for the makif. The other thing to note is if they're on your policy, so your son or daughter has the accident on your watch, so on your policy, the claim is on your policy as well. So you now have a claim, and the more claims you have, the more you're going to be paying in premiums as well.
So for example, in a few years' time, when he goes off my insurance and takes his own insurance, that will still reflect on my record?
For 3 years, for the 3 years that they're still on. And the child may not necessarily have their own insurance record as well. There are solutions to that though. For example, there is an insurance company that allows a child to be insured with the same company, usually to about age 24, where you in essence purchase a bank of kilometers. Where you're in essence saying, I know my child, my son and my daughter is not going to be driving a huge amount. They might drive every day or around the corner to friends or do a bit of shopping, or back in the day where apparently cinemas used to be a thing, or going out to cafes, although hopefully we're getting to that stage where things gradually opening up now in the hopefully soon post-corona world. So if they do drive frequently, but they're not driving that far, so there is a policy available where it tracks them on their phone, and they log in each time and log off, and it comes out of the bank of kilometers that they can drive. It is a much cheaper policy. If someone has 2 cars, it can, for example, let's say you and your wife have a car and you've insured it with that company as well, they can be insured on both cars and extra, so you're not paying the extra on both. And you don't pay more for the chovah on that. And that way it saves on the chovah. Even though
there's 2 cars?
Even that, it's something which allows it to be far more cost efficient. So you're allowing the young driver to drive on both your cars with the same company. The young driver has their own policy. So if they have a claim, it's on their record, not on yours. And they can top up as well. They're running out of kilometers, they can top it up. It can roll over to next year. You have to buy a symbolic amount for the next insurance year. But if they haven't used it up, they don't get wasted. They can still, the 17-year-old can roll out, and they're 18, they're still a young driver. It can roll over. So there are options where it can be very cost effective for someone who has a young driver, and they can take out this plan. I would advise parents who are coming up, let's say their child is 16, and they know within a year they're going to have a child who hopefully will pass the driving test and will start driving, to already in advance think forward and ask for that insurance company, even if it might be slightly more expensive initially, because in the long run it will be much cheaper when that child does pass their test. And it's a way of, number one, having them build up their own claims record, and if the unforeseen were to happen and there is a claim, it doesn't go on the parent's record, it goes just on the son or daughter's record. And the third thing, it's often much more cost efficient, because it's a lot cheaper than adding them the whole time, where you pay much more for both the chovah and the makif, and they can be added if there are more than one car in the family. Both parents, the mother and the father, for example, have a car each, that if they're with that same company, at no extra cost, they can be insured and drive in both cars. So that is an option which exists.
Okay, great. Danny, do you have any other useful tips for us around car insurance, things that we should be aware of maybe before we go?
So yes, so a few things within the insurance policy as well. Often within the company, some companies set it externally, but there's usually towing systems, towing services, roadside assistance, breakdown coverage. A lot of people may forget about it. Always, when you get your policy, save in your phone what the towing services are. Especially as a car, it was going back when we spoke about downgrading to third party, just covering the car you hit. Usually older cars are more susceptible to breaking down as well. So make sure as well, in addition to the chovah, you're also covering third party, but make sure you've also got the breakdown and towing services and replacement cars covered within that. That is something that is very important to have, and to avoid having to pay out of pocket for something you've got coverage, jot down the number, make a note of it, save it in your phone, or put it in the glove compartment within the car. So if you break down in the middle of the night, there are very few insurance agents who will either answer the phone or be best pleased to answer the phone at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to advise of what the phone number is of the towing services. So make sure you have that. That's something that's usually covered or should be covered. The second thing is windshield coverage. So if, let's say, a stone's flicked up from a truck in front and cracked the windshield, that's not considered a claim, and most policies will cover that. It doesn't count as a claim. You may have to pay for the sealant, the rubber sealant around the windshield, but that's covered. Policies can be. So I can claim for that, but it won't count against me. It's more of a service provider, through one of the many companies like Autoglass, Alif Glass, where you may have to go to certain places, or they may come to you depending on the policy, where they will fix it, but it doesn't count as a claim. A lot of people aren't familiar with that. Policies can be expanded to cover the wing mirrors. Especially if you live in Tel Aviv. So I actually had that a couple of years ago. So especially, if I let's say look at my the first car which I bought was a 1968 Triumph, which had like just a metal casing on a very small mirror.
Right.
So how much is that going to cost to replace if that's broken? Today everything's electrical. They fold in,
right.
and you can move them with a button. If someone has swiped off your mirror, that's a few thousand shekel.
Right.
So I happen to have the rider on the policy. It's not a standard, built into the policy, and I had to pay like 150, 200 shekel because it was not just the glass; it was the whole, what's called bet menorah, the whole mirror
right.
fitting
Yes.
that had to be replaced. It just cost me up to a couple hundred shekel in the copay. Didn't
yes.
count as a claim,
right.
and it was fixed. So those are extra things that can be added.
Okay.
Other things that can, to, I guess, use George Orwell, all animals are equal, just some are more equal than others. To paraphrase what he said, all comprehensive policies are comprehensive, just some are more comprehensive than others.
Right.
If we go back to July 2019, so coming up for 2 years, often we have demonstrations in this country. Thankfully, we're in a country where democracy, people are able to demonstrate. So back in the summer of 2019, there were the demonstrations against the discrimination that was going on for people who came on Aliyah from Ethiopia. As with all often happens in some demonstrations, there might be one or two people who take it one step too far.
Right.
And I still remember, I think it was the 3rd of July 2019, there's pictures in the newspapers and articles in Ynet showing a burnt out car
right.
that had been torched.
Yes.
The standard policy will not cover riots, strikes or commotions,
okay.
in Hebrew known as muhumot or shvitot.
Okay.
And I still remember, in Ynet, for example, the article was, how can you claim if your car was burnt or damaged in a demonstration?
Right.
And they said it's going to be excluded from coverage from the insurance policy.
Right.
There are riders or things that can be added, and all our policies tend to cover this as standard, which many people don't cover for some
yes.
reason. You can cover damage for riots, strikes and commotions, so that if your car was in the wrong place at the wrong time,
right.
and is damaged, or in this case, which was that picture, had been torched, and obviously a total loss in the car, it doesn't really cost that much extra
yes.
to add,
okay.
and it makes sure the car is covered.
Right.
Also earthquake damage, won't go into whether or not the likelihood of that happening is or won't happen. There's one, other than the school of thought that the longer we are since the last one, some say that we're closer to the next one. But again, the standard policy won't cover Ri'idat Adama, won't cover earthquake damage. There are riders, this is something which we tend to add in all our policies as well, to cover that.
Yes.
Another example would be what happens in a claim. At the time of damage to a car, so you've taken your car to the garage, a loss adjuster, a shamai assessor comes to assess two things. First, how much does it cost to fix,
yes.
and whether or not the car will be deemed a total loss or
yes.
a write-off. They will also assess, has there been any depreciation caused to my car?
Right.
So for example, if I was looking to buy a car and I see two cars exactly the same age, one has not been involved in accidents, but one has been repaired after a major accident,
yes.
the likelihood is that the value of the car that's post a major accident and having been fixed is going to be cheaper.
Right.
So I've ultimately, in the accident, lost money if I was to sell it the next day.
Right.
So the insurance companies will pay the depreciation, the loss in value at that point in time.
Okay.
Now, most standardized policies will have an additional deductible or copay of 1.5% of the value of the car.
Okay.
So if, let's say, the car's worth 100,000 shekel and I've lost 5,000 shekel, I've lost 5,000 shekel on the value of the car if I was to sell it the next day after being fixed. I won't get the full 5,000 shekel in addition to it being fixed. I will get 3,500.
Right.
5,000 less the 1.5 or 1,500 shekel.
Got it.
There are policies, and again, most of our policies have this, where we have a zero deductible on the loss of value.
Yes.
So we will cover the full depreciation.
Got it.
That is, in essence, some other things to look for.
Great. Danny, thank you so much for your time. It was really informative and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.